I have a fresh cup of coffee. I thought we'd have a little coffee talk this morning. I've been getting my coffee from a local roaster. It is so good, and then I put it in my French press. It's actually the best. And so what I do, because coffee is an all-morning thing, I have a little coffee warmer right here that I put my cup on, and then I use a little cork coaster, and I put that on top. The coffee stays nice and hot. One of the things that's important to think about as we grow older is the fact that this period of our lives, kind of late 50s, all the way probably up to mid 70s, there are a lot of big decisions that get made. And I don't think we put enough time and energy into really recognizing that. Most of us are thinking about retiring in that little time frame. And then along with retiring, which is a huge life change, comes the decision about where are you going to live? Are you going to live in the house you've been living in? Are you going to move to a new community? Are you going to move closer to the kids? Are you going to go to an over 55 community? Those are big life decisions. And I don't think we spend enough time reflecting on how important those decisions are. As many of you know, I lived in the Villages, which is the largest over 55 community in the United States, for over 2.5 years. And today I'm going to talk about my experience there. But first, we've got a Hug Club update. I'll tell you what, I'm having so much fun with the Hug Club. And for all of you who have sent me letters, thank you. It is so fun and such a treat to get these letters and cards from you. It's like getting a little gift. It's so great. So today I have 3 cards. This one, isn't this cute? This is from Debbie Lynch in Saline, Missouri. Am I pronouncing that right, Debbie? So really sweet card. And everybody writes such nice things. It's really fun. This one, so pretty. Look at the color of that envelope. And then here's the card. And look, there's little pearls on it. Isn't that pretty? And a little sticker on the back. This is so beautiful. So this is from, oh my gosh, this lettering is so tiny. Okay, it says Joanna Jean Price. Is that right, Joanna? From ding, 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 South Riding, Virginia. Really, really nice. And everybody leaves me such sweet little notes. And then this card, look at that illustration. I love that illustration. Isn't that pretty? That looks like something I would have painted. And this is from Marcy from Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Thank you, you guys. If you're wondering what the Hug Club is, it's super fun. It's something that's so popular now on the channel. We just launched it about a month ago. It is a combination of a print club and a pen pal club. And oh my gosh, it's been so popular. The print club part is you get a whole bunch of beautiful hand-drawn, hand-painted original art done by me. So the August collection is out, and here are the original pieces of art in the August Hug Club collection. What can you do with these? Whatever you would like. If I was to sell prints of these pieces, the file that you guys get is the same file I would send to the printer. So you can print it out and frame it. You can use it as gifts. You can have cards made of it. I have one hugger has made a collection of cards from the original artwork. Plus you get journal pages and a really fun to-do list and coloring pages. Super fun. And if you would like, we will hook you up with a pen pal. And to my delight, my absolute delight, the pen pal part has been so wonderfully popular. People love connecting. And why are we doing this? Because we need to connect. We need to reconnect. I think we've gotten disconnected over the last several years. It's been super fun. If you haven't heard of it or you've been thinking about it, go ahead and take a look at it. I've got it linked in the description box down below. It's only $10 a month, so why not give it a try? And those of you who live outside of the US, we need you. We need you because we're getting so many requests for international pen pals. So if you've been thinking about it, go ahead and hop in. You're gonna have so many people that want to connect with you via pen pals. And I'll tell you, Opening your mailbox and getting these kind of letters is such a treat. It is so very fun. So that's the update on the Hug Club. August collection is out now. So what I want to talk about today is my experience in the Villages, because I lived there for 2.5 years. If you're not familiar with the Villages, I'll just give you a really quick little snapshot. It is located in Central Florida. It covers, and I believe these statistics are correct. They might be a little bit lower now, but it covers about 80 square miles, so it's huge. There are over 150,000 residents there, and I think there's something like 70 to 80,000 homes. So the place is ginormous. And to bring it into something that's really relatable, I had a girlfriend that lived towards the top of the Villages. I lived towards the bottom of the Villages. It took me almost 40 minutes on surface streets to get to her house. So it's huge. And she lived in the same community as I did. It's big. Why do they call it the Villages? Because all the little neighborhoods are collected into what they call a village. And each village has a different name, like Alpine or Siesta or Richmond or blah, blah, blah. I don't even remember the names now, and I haven't been gone that long. And each village, or most of the villages, are semi-gated. And what I mean by that is that there is a gate in the front of the community. However, if you're just visiting, you can drive up, stop your car, press the button, and the gate will open. It's not as though only residents can get in. What does that do? Well, it's a bit of a deterrent for people who are trying to get in for less than honorable reasons because they have to go through that gate. And I'm sure that there's cameras there now. There's cameras almost everywhere. The reason it is at the top of my mind to talk about is I saw this thumbnail on YouTube the other day, and I think it's probably pretty dramatic, and it was created to be dramatic. The reason I want to bring that up is that the opinions that I've seen about the Villages really range from, oh my gosh, we absolutely love it, to oh my gosh, that's hell on earth. And what's the reality? I think the reality is probably somewhere in between. And what I'm going to talk about today is my experience. I lived there for over 2.5 years. I rented a beautiful home in a, gated, semi-gated community. And I'm going to share how it felt for me, what I felt the pros were and the cons were. And if I don't touch on your question or don't answer specifically your question, go ahead and put it in the comment section down below and I'll try to get to it. How did I end up in the Villages? Well, I've been traveling around, gosh, for the past probably 11 or 12 years now. Why? Because I like to see new places. I get asked a lot, why do you move so much? And my answer is because I can. I have a job, YouTube, which allows me to live anywhere I want as long as I have an internet connection. And I have a love for seeing new stuff. And every now and then I'll have someone say, what is it you're looking for? Why do you keep moving around? I'm not looking for anything except for fun. I just like seeing new places. And for me, going somewhere to travel somewhere, I want to stay for at least a month because I want to get to know that place. A week is not long enough. You just unpacked your suitcase and found how to get to the local coffee shop. There's not enough time to really get to know the culture or the community. So for me, I moved to the Villages because I had a girlfriend that lived there. She suggested that I give it a look-see. I went down and visited. I thought, oh, this looks like it could be fun. And while I was there at this exploratory trip, I just pulled the trigger and ended up renting a house, which was the house that I lived in for 2.5 years. Did I have fun living in the Villages? The answer is, I had a flippin' blast. I had an absolute blast. It was like summer camp for a 60-something-year-old woman. It truly was. I had a great time. But keep in mind, I knew that it was a short-term thing. In other words, this was not going to be my forever home. And as a matter of fact, even though I knew that it was a short-term adventure for me, I love adventures, I did end up staying a little bit longer than I had anticipated. I was there for a little over 2.5 years. What can I say about the villages? Well, I'm going to go into my impressions and my opinions, but I want to make sure that you have a reasonable understanding of my position so that you can gauge your reaction to my position. I am wildly independent. And if you really want to get on my bad side really quick, tell me what to do or try to tell me what to do. I don't like being told what to do. I like to do what I want to do when I want to do it, which I do. I have designed a life for me that I can tomorrow get up and go wherever I want to. That's my preference. That's what I like in my life, the ability to make decisions quickly, to do what I want quickly, and to have lots of different choices. That's just me. Another thing I want you to keep in mind is pretty much my entire life, I have worked for myself independently. In other words, I have never really had a long-term job. The last long-term job I had was, oh my gosh, in my late 20s, I worked for E.F. Hutton, a stockbroker firm. Some of you will remember that, when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen, remember that tag. I was a stockbroker for E.F. Hutton for a couple of years. That was the last real job I had. I have created businesses and worked for myself my entire life. Now, there were times during those many decades that I did get a little job because I needed some cash. I was transitioning from one thing to another. Like I worked in a nursery for several months. I worked as a florist for several months, but these were just little low entry level jobs that I could get quickly, make some cash quickly while I was building up the next thing. So keep in mind that my life has never been structured. I have never done that 9 to 5 year after year, lived in the same community, hung out with the same people, consistent life. That has not been my life. It's actually been the opposite of my life. I have moved a ton, which I love doing because I love seeing new things. So if you're a person who has worked for a corporation or a company for decades, lived in the same house, done the same things, keep in mind my life has been different than yours. And how that fleshes out is my opinions or my choices are going to be different than yours. So that's something to think about. And as we move through this period of our lives, when we're thinking about, do we want to retire? Do we want to keep working? Do we want to retire and get a part-time job? Do we want to live in the same place? Do we want to move? One of the most important things you can do is really know who you are. Like, do you like that consistency? Do you like that getting up and doing the same thing? Is that comforting to you or does it feel suffocating to you? So those are the things that you need to keep in mind as I move forward with my opinions. So did I have fun in the villages? I had an absolute blast. I also knew that it was a short-term thing. The villages is extremely structured. And as you would guess, it would be. In other words, the houses are all built by the villages themselves. The grounds are maintained by the villages themselves. The rules are made by the villages themselves. There's a whole culture that you walk into that is completely structured and laid out for you. There are a lot of rules in the villages. And the rules that aren't written down are kind of, assumed. Like you do certain things and you don't do certain things. What I can say about the company that owns the villages is for that type of community, by golly, they do an exceptional job. I did not notice at any time when I was in the villages where they fell down on the job or didn't do something well or didn't manage something well. They were amazingly efficient. And I can think back to the times I was there, I think during 2 or 3 major hurricanes. They had that place cleaned up in no time after the hurricanes. You would almost think that nothing had happened. The houses are built to withstand those hurricanes. I had no damage, very little damage. I think one screen door got kind of swung open and bent a little bit from the winds. But it's really amazing how well of a job they do for what it is they've created. I cannot fault the company that runs the villages at all. But keep in mind There are a lot of people that really resent the villages because of the amount of people it's brought into the state, the amount of water they use, the amount of resources they use. I can see that point of view, but keep in mind that land that the villages is built on is right along a freeway. So it's very low value land. Who wants to develop a house or build a house right along a freeway? Not too many people. But the villages bought that land and they built out the villages along that freeway. So in my mind, we're looking at an additional tax base to the state of Florida from land that probably wasn't going to get used for much of anything, maybe warehouses or shipping centers or that sort of thing. The tax base from the villages is going to be a lot higher. So there's kind of pros and cons to that. Is it safe? I found it remarkably safe, remarkably safe. Now, there are people out there that are going to say, oh, I had a bad experience, or I had my car broke into, or I had a drunk guy accost me walking home one night or something. There were, little bitty reports of that as far as I could see here and there, but it definitely wasn't pervasive. In other words, I would feel totally comfortable driving home from a square. That's where they have the little dancing, outdoor dancing in the evenings with live music. It's pretty funny. I would feel totally comfortable driving home from one of the squares in my golf cart at night alone and, getting home and going into my garage and locking everything up. I did not feel at risk at any time. But also keep in mind, I have traveled extensively. I have lived in Mexico a number of times. I have lived in Ecuador. I spent a couple of months in Italy. I have traveled a lot. I have rode buses in Mexico from one town to the other, which, can be dicey. I have never had a bad experience. So I can't say that my experience in the villages not having anything bad happen is unusual for me, because it's not. I just am mindful and careful. So my experiences in all of my travels have been wonderful and fine, and I've met amazing people. So we've talked about, is the villages well run? It's extremely well run, in my opinion. And I've seen a lot of development. Second, is it safe? Yes, I would say it is very safe in the villages. And I was a woman, single woman, living there alone in a house, and I felt very, very safe. Never had anything bad happen. Is the community nice? Yeah, the community's great. I mean, think about it. It's a whole bunch of older people, most of them retired, but some of them still working. I think the age is 50 or 55. It might be 55. There's a lot of people that are still working at 55. So there's a lot of people that are still working. Most people are retired, and it's very, how do I describe it? You know what it is? And I want to do this in a nuanced way so that you get what I'm meaning. It is a whole lot like high school, because think about it. When you're in high school or junior high, everybody that you spend your day with is in the same stage of life as you. You're in 7th grade together, or you're in 8th grade together, or you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior together. Everybody around you is in your same stage of life. So that's what the villages is like. Everyone around you is in your same stage of life. They're either close to retiring or have retired. They're older. They have mostly moved from somewhere else to live in the villages in Florida. So everyone is very similar in their position in life. It's pretty homogenous there. And I don't mean homogenous like, oh, everybody looks the same or dresses the same or acts the same, but that could be said. But it's homogenous in the stage of life that people are in. The other side of that is, the high school reference. I would probably characterize the social structure the same way. It's very similar to high school. It's the same dynamics. There's the cool kids who have the driveway parties with the live band and everybody shows up. There's the tennis players over here. There's the pickleball players over here. There's the golfers over here. It's very similar to high school in that, you know, the basketball guys all hung out together and the football guys all hung out together and the cheerleaders all hung out together and the art people all hung out together. It's very, very similar. In other words, there's not a lot of broad range of interactions because everyone's in a similar place in life and people just sort of filter in to their own little community. So that's kind of, you know, the social structure and who lives in the villages. How are the homes? I thought the homes were wonderful. You know, they're well built. They are tract houses. Keep that in mind. They are tract houses, but they do a nice job. You know, the finishes are nice. You can go there, you can buy your house, you can choose your finishes. There's different models, there's different choices. There's tons of different villages. Some villages have more, you know, nature area. Some villages are circled around a golf course. Some villages are close to a square. So you really do need to decide, what am I looking for in my house? You know, where do I want to be? I can say that overall, if that's the lifestyle you're looking for, there's a lot to be said for that community. I think they do it really well. Another plus of the community is there's retail right inside the community. There are something called squares, and squares are kind of a takeoff of the village square that we used to have in smaller communities across this country. And a square is an area where there's retail that surrounds a literal square, and that square has a stage on it, and there is live music by local bands playing music from our youth, like 60s, 70s, 80s classics that play 365 days a year, every single night. And one of the big things about living in the villages is in the evening, people take their little golf carts and go up to the square and they listen to the music and they meet their friends and they chat, and maybe they buy an ice cream cone or get a cocktail, dance, hang out. I mean, it's very, very social at the villages. In other words, if you want to be social, honey, you aren't ever going to be bored in the villages. In addition, they have hundreds of clubs. The last time I checked, it was like 400 clubs. Now, what is a club? A club is like a knitting club, or a fishing club, or a cooking club, or an art club. It's just like a club you would join in a regular community where you all get together and participate in an activity. Maybe it's rock hounding, maybe it's bird watching. There is a club for everything. And if there's not a club for what it is you like to do, you can create one, because there are clubhouses and community centers all throughout the villages that have meeting rooms and craft rooms and kitchens that you can use. The whole community is totally set up for a very social, very active lifestyle. So if you're looking for connection, if you feel like you've been working in the same office with the same people for 35 years now, and if you don't meet some new people, you're going to lose your mind, you really can meet a lot of people there. I mean, if you get bored in the villages, it's because you haven't left your house. That's really the truth. There's not much that you can't connect with as far as interest in the villages. So what I'm trying to get across is, if you're looking for an over 55 community, my experience at the villages is they really do it right. They spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort making sure that the residents of the villages are happy, they're engaged in activities that they find interesting, that there's lots to do, that there's good music, that there's restaurants. It's all been very, very well staged and coordinated in order to keep older people very busy. Now you're probably wondering, oh my gosh, this place sounds like heaven. She loves it. Well, you know, I loved a lot of things about it, and I absolutely had a blast while I was there, like I said earlier. I really, really did. I had a blast. Why? Because I knew I wasn't going to stay. I knew that going in. And so I could touch my toe into that community, into that environment, enjoy what it had to offer me, knowing full well that I was not going to stay. And that is what made the difference for me. And plus, I pretty much have fun wherever I go. So the fact that I had fun is not unusual. I pretty much have fun all the time. Would I live in the Villages or any 55 community again? And the answer is emphatically no. Absolutely not. And you're probably surprised at that because what I said earlier is such a glowing report, and it really is. If that's the kind of life you're looking for, it is not ultimately in a long-term way a good fit for me. Why? Because I don't live a conventional life. I don't do most of the things that most people do. I do it differently. I like to be creative. I like to try new things. I like to make my own decisions. I don't want a curated environment. I don't want a homogenous community. I want to see real life. And one of the things about the Villages is that, and this is my opinion, so if you live in a 55 community or you live in the Villages, don't take this to heart. You do you. You do what feels good for you. I found that culture almost anesthetizing. And what do I mean by that? It's almost a Truman Show experience. In other words, things are too managed. They're too curated. They're too specific down a very, very narrow belief system about what life is and what a rewarding, fulfilling life is. And I found it a little devoid of true humanity. And when I say that, please don't be offended. I just found it lacking in the things that I really enjoy about humans on this earth. I am not a fan of a intensely landscaped environment. Why? Because it's not real. That's not what, foliage and trees and nature looks like. They have that place manicured to within an inch of its life. And every square inch of that community is sprayed with chemicals continually, all the time. Think about that. Not only are the golf courses drenched in glyphosate, everything's drenched in glyphosate. And you might say, oh, well, they spray glyphosate everywhere. Well, let me just give you some facts about glyphosate and what it's like living around glyphosate over an extended period. And I'm actually going to read some information right here so that no one can say, you made that up. I did make it up. This is from government data. Research indicates that living near golf courses in all the open areas on the Villages are treated the same way as the golf courses. Research indicates that living near golf courses is associated with an increased risk of cancer, primarily due to exposure to pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers used to maintain that turf. Studies have linked this proximity to elevated rates of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, that's the #1 cancer from glyphosate, prostate cancer, brain cancer, and childhood leukemia. In addition, Parkinson's disease, there's a major correlation. It's 120% higher risk of Parkinson's disease for those living within 6 miles of a golf course. Think about that. And this is not 6 miles from a golf course. This is the open common area right down the street from your home. Golf course superintendents, think about that. Those are the guys who work on the golf courses all day long. This is also relevant to the lawn keepers, all the people that are working on the lawns there in the Villages. They face a significant higher mortality rate from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, over twice the national average than someone in another profession. So think about that. And the natural human response is to say, well, if it wasn't safe, they wouldn't use it. No, actually they would, because, we're looking at probably not choices made for the health of humans over profits for corporations. So think about that. That entire community, that 80 square miles, is drenched in glyphosate because it looks beautiful and it's beautifully maintained and it looks fabulous and the golf courses look fabulous. Why? Because it's covered in pesticides. So that's something to think about. We as the population in the United States, we have made the decision collectively that a lawn looking beautiful is more important than our health. You know, that was a decision that I made. I knew that this was a really high toxic load living in this community, and it wasn't something that I wanted to choose for myself over the long term. What else? I love living in a real community with all ages. Right now, I'm living right next door to a young couple, and they have a couple of little girls. Those little girls spend time at my house. We color, we crochet, we hang out, we go for, I walked them to summer camp a few weeks this summer. That's fun for me. I would not get that opportunity in the villages because it's, again, very, very homogenous. There aren't any kids in the villages. There aren't any young couples in the villages. There are older people at my same stage in life. The good side of that is that you have lots of little playmates to make, if you want to. The downside is it really does diminish what I think is one of the beautiful things about life, and that's being around other humans that are in different stages of life. The other thing that did not work for me is the curation of the environment. And the reason that it didn't work for me is because that is not the kind of environment that I would curate. I am much more creative, much more artistic, much more independent thinking. So an environment curated much like, what would I call it? It's such a planned community. There's not that funky little coffee shop right down the street with the owner that was from Brazil and makes the best coffee ever. There's not that cool little, shoe repair guy down the street that's been repairing shoes since he was 12 because he learned it from his dad. There's not that kind of real, creative, unique human experience that I find so rewarding. It's very curated. It's very curated in a planned community way. So those are things for you to think about. A lot of people find that curation comforting and safe, and it's a warm, easy feeling for them. I found it a little devoid of what I think of as the wonderful creativity and uniqueness of humanity. So depending on where you fall in life, what you're looking for, maybe you've worked at, again, a job for 35 years, same office, same building, and you find that comforting. Maybe you've worked in that same place, same office, same building for 35 years, and you're about to lose your mind if you don't have some variety in your life. There are different choices that we need to make at this age about what feels good for us. For me, it was fun for a little while. I got to see a different kind of culture. It's a very, very unique culture in the villages. Much like, I lived in Florence for 2 months. That's a very, very unique culture in Florence. I was not in a car for 2 months. I walked or took the train everywhere. That's a different culture than we have here in the US. So what kind of culture is fulfilling for you, feels good for you, feels enriching for you, interests you, and satisfies your need for variety? So long story short, did I enjoy my time in the villages? Absolutely. Would I live in an over 55 community again? No, I would not. It doesn't really spark in me the things that I'm interested in having sparked, and I did it. I did it, and I had a great time. But also, I want to let you know, most of the stuff that I did for recreation was outside the villages. In other words, I was taking my kayak and going kayaking around the towns of the villages. The area that the villages is in, Central Florida, is absolutely stunningly beautiful. It really is. I would love to live in that area again sometime because it is so incredibly beautiful and diverse. And if you're an outdoor person, oh my gosh, there's the Atlantic Ocean, there's the Gulf. There are so many different springs to swim in or kayak in. There's so much to do in that area of Florida. And I think it gets overlooked because everybody is always thinking about South Florida, you know, the Miami area or Tampa. This is Central Florida. It is open rolling fields and cows and incredibly gorgeous oak trees and gorgeous springs, beautiful coastline. So I had most of my fun outside the perimeter of the villages. Again, I had a great time there. Would I do it again? No, I wouldn't. So those are my thoughts on an over 55 community for us women. And so many of us right now are looking around as we make choices about whether to retire and whether we're going to live in the same house or whether we want to move. So I hope this was helpful for you and gave you some food for thought about where you want to plant yourself as, you know, your new life begins. Maybe a 55 plus community is a perfect fit for you. Maybe it's just not. So getting to know yourself and understanding yourself, I think, is the most critical choice that you need to make. Again, if I didn't answer your questions, put your comments or questions down below and I'll try to get to them. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget about the Hug Club. If you live outside of the US, we need you. And, you know, we would love to have you anyway. It's such a fun, connecting, great thing. And I am so appreciative of all the people that have joined in. It's been very popular and are having a great time with the Hug Club. Again, that'll be linked in the description box down below. If you don't know me, I'm Kimberly. This is Pretty Over 50, where we talk everything beauty, fitness, and lifestyle for the over 50 and over 60 women. I'll be 70 in a couple of months. I'm really looking forward to my 70s. I think they're going to be a blast. All right, make it a great day, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye now.